Good morning, everybody. Nikki Burnett here. Today's Taste Life Nutrition Radio and podcast streaming live on KUHSdenver.com. We're going to continue talking about the microbiome. We did a lot of talking last week about the things that can disrupt the microbiome. And so this week I want to talk about things that can help to build and support the microbiome. There's so much to it. And, I think every day we're learning more and more about the importance of the microbiome, the bugs that are in our gut and on our skin and all over us. And then, of course, the importance of what we can do daily to help to support it, and which then in turn helps to support us. So, as always, though, we should start the show with gratitude. I think gratitude is so important, even when it's hard. It can really change, it can change our thoughts and our outlook. And this morning, I was setting everything up here, and as I'm bending down to, you set up the, all of the cameras and that kind of thing. As I'm bending down, my legs are screaming at me. I'm so sore. And if anybody out there, this is my first time to do this, but so, I do CrossFit, and what I am grateful for is the ability to move. I think movement is obviously it's important to everything that we do, but feeling good and being able to move well. And so CrossFit yesterday, we did 400 meters of lunges, which I have never done before. And we did it on the cement. And so if you've done lunges, right, your knee hits the ground. So 400 meters of my knees hitting the ground. And part of the time I was just like, no, don't touch the ground, because it just really hurt. but today I'm grateful to feel the tightness and the soreness and the discomfort, because I know that, in doing it, it just makes me stronger. And I love that, and I appreciate it, even though it's really, really flipping hard. During the time that I'm doing it, it was really good. It was a tough one. It's so interesting, but it's always tough, and you're always, it's that gratitude when it's finished, right? But anyway, I'm looking forward to tomorrow, when I'm actually just going to be really sore and having a hard time going up and down stairs, because I have 2 sets of stairs in my house, and so that's going to be great. But anyway, so let's do this. I think that moving into the microbiome, I want to do a little bit of a recap of last week, because we talked a lot about the things that can destroy, disrupt, create a dysbiotic situation in the GI. And so dysbiosis meaning, at minimum, it means a disruption in the good bugs versus the bad bugs, right? So we have our commensals, which are our friendly bacteria. We have opportunistic bacteria, which are those that are supposed to be commensal or friendly, but when some of these keystone and really important bugs are not, there aren't enough of them, these that can be opportunistic then can proliferate and then create problems. And then we have, just your full-on pathogenic bugs and worms and parasites and yeasts and fungi and things like that can really create a lot of problems. So, but even those that are opportunistic, if you don't already know this, there's a yeast that is a commensal yeast that is normal to the GI, it's normal to the vaginal tract, and it's called Candida, right? So most of us, especially as women, have heard of Candida. And so if we've had a yeast infection, that's kind of the simple. Sometimes they can be recurrent and be terrible, but they can also go systemic. It can be everywhere. It can, affect brain health and cognitive health and all kinds of stuff. Skin, right? It can cause skin rashes and things like that. So those are the types of yeasts that have a place and play a role in health, but also if the environment is not correct and you don't have enough of the the right bugs, or so for some things maybe it's the right amount of hydrochloric acid, the vagina is not acidic enough, then these things can overgrow and we don't have enough of the good bugs to control them. So that's really our goal, is making sure that we have enough of these good healthy commensals so everything else is pretty much in line to a degree, right? And so essentially, whoops, wrong mouse. Essentially what we're looking at, things that have the potential to create a problem, and these are the things we talked about last week. We talked about pharmaceuticals, right? You've got your non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, so your Aleve, your ibuprofens, aspirins, any of those things can be really disruptive to the microbiome. So minimizing those as much as possible. What's the other one? Diclofenac, which is a prescription. Really strong, and non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, and can be really problematic for our GI. Processed foods, right? So processed foods, there's nothing in processed foods that is giving us nutrition. And certainly it's not supporting our microbiome. So processed foods often have preservatives and synthetic nutrients, think folic acid, things like that in bread. Super problematic, by the way. And then things like the colorings, the trans fats, high carb, high simple carb, high sugar, all of these things are going to disrupt the microbiome. They're going to kill off our good bugs. They're going to create an environment that's not going to host our healthy good bugs, but it will enable the proliferation of the opportunistic or the pathogenic. So something to think about too, I need to just do a whole show on this, but what happens to a lot of us as we age, and I think I say this as we age. I really think it really depends on nutrient deficiency is what it is, but we tend to lose our hydrochloric acid, or lose the amount that we're supposed to have. Right? It's the acid that's in our stomach. We're supposed to be super acidic in our stomach, or we're taking PPIs, right? Proton pump inhibitors, acid blockers, because we have heartburn and we think that we can't handle the heartburn. And I know it can be really disruptive and really hard, but we have to have that acid. What's often happening when we have heartburn is coming up too late and too much, but it's only because there's a deficiency of it. So we need to build our hydrochloric acid. But what that does, besides help us break down our food, is it protects us. When we have, if we're eating meat, if we're out in the garden, if we're hanging out with our dogs, we have these microbes that get into our mouth, right, and our nose, and it all goes down. And so that acid helps to protect us from any of those pathogenic microorganisms that have the ability to get in all kinds of different ways, but those are a couple of different ways. So that acid is protective. Obviously, it also helps to break down nutrients and help us to utilize them, but it's a protective barrier in a sense to help it that helps to keep those pathogenic microbes out. Chronic stress. We're in a place where so many of us are struggling with chronic stress in whatever situation we're in. So, believe it or not, a really great way to support the microbiome is to meditate, it's to pray, it's to be still, it's to walk in the grass, it's to get some sun, it's to do, it's to eat and be still, which allows the GI to do its job and break down food and produce the hydrochloric acid and the enzymes necessary for breaking down food. So chronic stress is super disruptive. Chronic stress leads to the inability to sleep very often, right? It leads to chronic inflammation. All of these things are going to disrupt the microbiome. Sleep disruption, one that I just hit on, of course, the circadian rhythm, if it is out of whack, we'll talk about rhythms throughout this show today, but rhythms are really important. Rhythms in the way that we approach life, the way that we sleep, the way that we eat. We have rhythms. Women have rhythms and cycles Men do as well. It can be weekly, it can monthly, it can be annual. So everything should have a rhythm, and this rhythm helps to manage and support the microbiome. One of those interesting rhythms would be the way that we eat and when we don't eat, right? And so we're not supposed to always be full. We're not supposed to always have food in the GI. There are times, which is why we fast overnight. But for some of us, maybe for a lot of us, fasting at intervals throughout the day is important too. Snacking is not always ideal. Sometimes we need to snack, sometimes we don't. So having that emptiness, whether you're fasting short term or long term, and this is not a fasting show necessarily. They have, there's good data and bad data on different types of fasting. So my point though is that having an empty belly and allowing for the rumbling to happen, allowing for things to move, helps to push out organisms. It helps to push out things that are not supposed to be there. So it's part of the process to eliminate the toxins and the microbes and things that shouldn't be in the GI in the first place. So super important. Let's see, environmental toxicants, right? So we look at chlorine. Chlorine, so frustrating, right? I mean, chlorine it's in our water that we're drinking. So what is chlorine doing? It's killing microorganisms. So just sit with that a minute. If you're drinking water out of your faucet and you've got chlorine in it, and you have a filter that doesn't filter chlorine, or it's so annoying. And so we are sterilizing our GI with the chlorine. We're also sterilizing our skin with the chlorine that's in the water when we're taking a bath or taking a shower. So this is not setting us up for a good, healthy, robust microbiome. So getting a good filter, and don't just trust any random Brita filter that's on the market. You got to get one that actually is going to do a good job. So it takes a little bit of time, takes a little bit of research. I have personally, I've gone through a few filters, one that I really like a lot, but I'm now on a distiller. I do a distiller, and I will, supplement with minerals and make sure I'm getting my minerals. And again, that's a whole other conversation, but distilling is what gets out radiation. Here in Colorado, we have a ton of radiation. In a lot of places around the United States, and I'm sure around the globe, there's a lot of radiation. And so getting that out of the water is really, really important. Here we're trying to get it out of our homes. So if we're trying to get it out of our homes, there's a good chance that it's in the water too. Then we've got our BPAs, which are in plastics, the phthalates, the pesticides, the herbicides. Going back to our food, the pesticides and the herbicides in all of our food is disgusting. So what does it do? It's killing microbes. So if you're eating food that is full of pesticides and herbicides, which is going to be most processed foods, but foods also that are, one ingredient foods, your foods from the earth, your vegetables, your fruit, grains if you do grains. These things are so loaded with pesticides and herbicides, and you can't wash it off. They say this all the time. It just kind of makes me crazy a little bit, because if you're eating food that's not organic, certified or not, I don't care about the certification. It's the way that it's grown. So, but if you're eating food that's full of the pesticides and herbicides, it's in the soil, right? So it takes a lot to bind these toxins out of the soil to actually have an organic farm. It's insane what you have to do. I mean, and it takes a long time. But if people are not, if their farming practices are not organic, then they're probably not doing proper soil turnover as well. And so the soils are depleted, so that means the vegetables and the fruits are depleted, and it means it's covered in pesticides and herbicides. So what is this doing? It's creating a toxic load for the liver. It's impacting our cognitive health. It impacts our endocrine system. So this is how we produce hormones. This is our our sex hormones, so our endocrine system, our adrenals and our thyroid and our testes and our pituitary gland and our hypothalamus gland and our I think I said thyroid, but all of these things are so key because they all produce hormones and they're all communicators. Hormones are communicators. They tell our body what to do. And if we have a system that is being overrun by toxicants and endocrine disrupting chemicals, then the communication doesn't happen well. Maybe not at all, right? And so this is where we start to create this amazing amount of dysfunction. But we're also looking at the potential for an estrogen overload, and it's a synthetic type of estrogen. So these things are called xenoestrogens. And so xenoestrogens, they bind to our estrogen receptor sites for men and for women, for kids, and it pushes this estrogen dominance, but it's not our own innate natural estrogen. So what happens? We have kids that are, girls starting their periods early. We have boys that have, like fatty tissue breasts. We've got, men with the same issue. We've got women with, these premenstrual dysphoric symptoms, and all kinds of stuff, right? So these things are just super toxic. And it's just the one thing. So it's not just the food, it's not just the air, it's not just the water, right? It's all of these things inundating us all at one time or all at the same time and constantly every day, all day long, that is pushing this massive disruption to everything that we're trying to do, of course, including the microbiome. So watching out for those toxins. We talk about detox. Detox is daily. It's not an annual thing that we do or a quarterly thing that we do. We support our detoxification processes every single day in everything that we're doing to help to mitigate and manage what comes from these toxins. Because some of them we can't. There's nothing we can do about it, right? Unfortunately, if you live in the city, it's not much you can do about the air and the chemicals in the air outside, but you can take care of your home, and you can take care of what you put on your skin and in your body. So I could just do this show all over again from last week. Probably shouldn't do that. And then we go into like the over sanitized environments. And so what does that mean? If you're constantly doing antibacterial soaps, if you're constantly doing antibiotics, all of this is the stuff that kills all the good bugs. And so I guess what we didn't hit on really is what the good bugs do. Steve Ratliff, happy birthday. I meant to call you this morning and I didn't do it. Anyway, so the good bugs, they build our immune function. Our GI is, so let's see, it's 90% of our serotonin, which is our happy neurotransmitter, and then 70% of our immune function. And then, so this is why it's so important to keep our bugs healthy and happy. And so there is often what you'll hear, and what I have in the title here is rebuilding the terrain. And so we have, you'll often hear the terrain theory versus the germ theory. And so what we have really, so many of us grown up with, is the germ theory, right? So it's these pathogens that come in and they create a problem, and we're afraid of germs, and we're afraid of touching people, and we're afraid of viruses, and everybody's afraid and fearful, and so you cover your mouth and you put on the antibacterial soaps, and you don't go outside, and you don't dig in the dirt, and you don't get in the play with your dogs, and whatever the case may be, right? So we're fearful of what is coming in and attacking us, when really, if we have a good, healthy, robust microbiome, which is our, again, going back to it, it's our skin, it's our oral microbiome, it's our GI, it's, for women, it's our vaginal microbiome. These things are all so protective. And if they're robust, then they have the ability to manage the things that come in. So why do some people get sick and the same person in that household doesn't get sick? Right? So we want to take a step back and stop the fear, right? It's not about fear, but it's about support. And so there's a lot of this too, that taking it back to what's his name, Pasteur, right? So the guy who discovered pasteurization, and he pasteurized milk, which takes all the nutrients out of milk, right? Really problematic. Creates a dead food, right? So we eat it and it just doesn't do anything for us, but creates mucus and for a lot of people, allergies and sensitivities. But this is all based on the germ theory, is that if we take the germs and the microbes out of the food, then then we're safe. When really it's not about that. It shouldn't be about taking that out of the food. It should be leaving the food as it is and building our own health up and supporting our microbiome. So, all right. So, let's move on to the things that we can do. So, foods. I'm a nutritionist. Foods kind of should always come first, but there's so many factors in health and in the microbiome, and so I think that we have to. It's important to understand all pieces, right? The lifestyle. Food is a part of lifestyle. Sleep is a part of lifestyle. Movement is a part of lifestyle. Or mental and emotional health and how we manage stress is a part of lifestyle. So all of them. Is there one more important than the other? No, I don't think so. I think we want to have a good handle on as many of these things as we can, and sometimes we're going to slip, and that's okay. But trying to keep all of these things as well managed as possible is going to be the stuff that's going to help us to optimize, and of course optimize our microbiome. So we're looking at, first I want to talk about prebiotic fibers. And so prebiotic fibers are really important to specifically like bifidobacteria. Bifidobacteria are keystone. They are, and there are multiple different types of these bifidobacteria, but they are really important to the integrity of the GI. And then we also have Akkermansia. Akkermansia, interestingly, is a GLP-1 agonist. So if we are supporting Akkermansia, we're supporting GLP-1, the natural peptide in our body, not what's coming from the pharmaceutical companies or the peptide companies, which I do love peptides, don't get me wrong, but we have the ability to support our own innate peptide production, and Akkermansia is one of the ways of doing that. And so these prebiotic fibers help to produce what's called short-chain fatty acids. Short-chain fatty acids they're so cool because we can eat these prebiotic fibers that help to create short-chain fatty acids, but our microbes feed on them, and then they will produce the short-chain fatty acids. And so what that then does is it supports our gut lining, right? So if you've heard the term leaky gut or gut permeability, right? So I say this a lot, but just in case you don't know what this is, because it's interesting. There's still so many people know what this is now. It's really fun how it's very much becoming mainstream and also starting to be recognized in conventional medicine. But leaky gut is when we have these cells that are so tight together, and they're not supposed to let anything through. But then there is a protein, I believe it's a protein called zonulin. So zonulin elevates, and these cells come apart. And so this is normal and natural. We just don't want it to stay that way, right? So the body's dynamic. It goes up and down. Blood pressure goes up and down. Cholesterol goes up and down. So we have to always keep that in mind when we're looking at labs that are a snapshot of just one point in time. But what we can often look at is multiple things in a lab panel. So if we're looking at zonulin, we can see that zonulin's elevated. So it was elevated at that point in time. But we can start to look at the inflammatory markers and the potential for dysbiosis and things like that then make us, can help us to sort of a takeaway is that there's a chronic leaky gut situation. I think leaky gut, for a couple of reasons, can be elevated. It's elevated during pregnancy. It's elevated during times of starvation. But there are things that are going to make it chronically elevated, which are going to be drugs and alcohol and gluten and potentially dairy and stress and things like that. So those are the things that have the potential of keeping it chronically elevated. And so if we're in an inflamed state and we have a lot of GI stuff going on, whether we have physical symptoms or not, we don't always feel the physical symptoms. Sometimes our GI symptoms are brain fog and cognitive disorders, right? So just because it's not in the GI doesn't mean there's not a GI issue. Often, if not most of the time, there is. But well, I went way off. So going back to short chain fatty acids help to support the gut lining, so hopefully zonulin is staying low, right? So it helps with the inflammatory process as well. So butyrate's a short chain fatty acid. You got butyrate, propionate, not acetate. I just lost it. Anyway, doesn't matter. Butyrate's the big one though. Butyrate you can get in supplement form. I do think that there are some propionate or butyrate propionate combos that are out there as well, but butyrate's kind of the big one. We can look at a GI panel and we can see butyrate producing bacteria in a GI panel, and if they are in abundance or not. So resistant starches, so they're kind of cool too, also helping to produce short chain fatty acids. So resistant starches are things like cooked and cooled potatoes. First time I heard of this, it was in school, so it was a lot of years ago, but I was, it's that that mindset that, I've been told for, most of my life that potatoes are not really healthy. They're just a starch. They don't give us a whole lot. But if you cook them, then cool them, there is whatever that process is that they're going through, it creates a resistant starch. So it's not digestible, but the bacteria feed off of it. So it's really amazing. Another thing is green, like the truly green bananas. So there's virtually no sweetness, right? And they're hard. That's a resistant starch. So that's something you can get green banana flour. You can use it in your cooking. So those are really great ways of supporting the microbiome and getting some good, healthy, undigestible fiber. But it's okay that it's undigestible. It's good because you're feeding your microbes. Let's see. There were other resistant cooked and cooled legumes and rice as well, and plantains, green plantains. Those are good ones. So polyphenols also, they are microbial modulators. How cool is that? So they support the growth of some of the keystone species, these Faecalibacterium prausnitzii. I think maybe the next show, I'm not sure when it'll be, will be on some of these bugs, like the specific types and what they do. The problem is pronouncing them. It's really difficult to pronounce some of these bugs. It's kind of insane. But anyway, polyphenols are the colors in fruits and vegetables. So think one of my favorite things, purple sweet potatoes. So good. Eggplants and raspberries and blueberries and beets, right? The list goes on and on. So all of these really beautifully colored fruits and vegetables, these polyphenols, they're antioxidants and they're supportive, but not to us. They're supportive to our microbiome. Super cool stuff, because we're always told, eat the rainbow. And we think, and up until, I don't know how long ago, it wasn't that long ago, I thought it was really to support us as well, that we eat the rainbow because it's antioxidants for our body that supports the functioning of our body, when it's not. It's supporting the functioning of our microbiome, which supports the functioning of the body. I mean, so cool, right? And then, so maybe we do this. We talk a little bit about oxidative stress, because polyphenols support our microbiome, which helps support oxidative stress. So oxidative stress is a normal natural product or byproduct of cellular function and metabolic pathways. It just happens. But what we don't want is to not have the ability to squash that oxidative stress to a degree, right? Too much oxidative stress is really problematic. And so when we eat things, antioxidants, and when we're supporting mitochondrial function with things like CoQ10, and then the brassica family are what am I thinking? The cruciferous vegetables. Goodness gracious, my brain sometimes. I need more antioxidants. So these are the things that help to support the oxidative stress that happens in the body. So what are other things that create oxidative stress, right? It's going to be environmental factors. It's going to be toxins. Things that are unnatural will create oxidative stress. And so we want to be able to support that. And the foods that we take in are a big part of bringing in antioxidants to support and to help mitigate too much oxidative stress. So then, of course, we've got fermented foods. We've so gotten away from good traditional foods, except for my friend like Steve Ratliff, who beer is a fermented food, but we're still not the way, it's still not created, well, at least for the most part, right? You drink your everyday beers. It's not going to be fermented the way that it needs to be fermented that supports us, right? So things that I'm truly talking about are going to be, your fermented fruits and vegetables. Think kimchi, think sauerkraut, but not fermented with vinegar. Well, it's not fermenting, right? So it's just adding vinegar doesn't do anything. It makes it look like it, feel like it, taste like it, but it's not, right? So the natural, normal way of fermenting food is through the process of adding in salt and water or adding in the microbes. So yogurt. And yogurt's a hard one for me because I am not a fan of yogurt. There's a lot to this, right? We're looking at the type of dairy, we're looking at the processing, the pasteurization, the additives to it, the sugar. So much about yogurt that should be good and traditionally was good, but no longer is for the most part. So when you go out and you eat a Yoplait, or even some of these Greek yogurts, they talk about the good healthy bugs. Most of them have virtually no bugs in them, or not enough to make an impact, right? Many of us need to make a true therapeutic impact on our microbiome because it's not functioning properly, or we want to build it up. And so just going out and buying yogurt is probably not doing you any good. And all of the other ingredients and these the sugars and the preservatives and whatever else. There's another one that I'm thinking of. It's the I can't think of what it's called, but it's the emulsifiers. That's what I'm looking for, emulsifiers. So a lot of the yogurts and ice creams and things have emulsifiers in them that are super disruptive to the microbiome. And so staying clear of that stuff. Think about if you want yogurt. I'm going to do a show on this too because this comes from the book Super Gut. I haven't started this process yet, but I'm about to. But taking in the proper microbes to then make your own yogurt or your own kefir or whatever it is you want to make it, whether it's with dairy, a good dairy, or making it with maybe a nut milk or something like that. So I'm super excited because this is something I'm going to start experimenting with. But you have the right bugs for the right purpose, and you're super dosing them essentially by fermenting them for a longer time. I think that's another problem with yogurt and other sort of mainstream fermented foods is they ferment for 12 or 24 hours when I think that what we really need is like 36, 48 hours plus to really build up the amount of bugs in there that we need. So then what are we doing? We're eating actual real food. We're not going out and buying probiotics that may or may not be alive. We're not buying yogurt that's probably not doing us any good. It's doing more harm than good. We're actually creating and eating food that is traditional ways of eating food in our own kitchen to create health. It's super cool stuff. So I want to dig into this a little more and talk about it. I don't know, whenever the time comes. But I think it's a great thing. The more we can do with food, the better. Doesn't mean supplementation is not important. I think it's really, really important, especially if you're doing it properly. Um, but that's not always easy to do. So you got to find somebody who knows what they're doing, because supplements, they can cover symptoms. We don't want to just cover symptoms. We want to address symptoms. Supplements can not be what we think they are. We can be using them for the wrong purposes. So we want to make sure that we're doing the right things with our supplements, and not throwing money away, or pooping them out because they don't digest. I mean, I hate that. Let's see. So bone broth and collagen. So this is cool because this is another food, and it's a really great food that can support our GI. So bone broth and collagens, they've got glycine, glutamine, proline. All of these things are important for tissue repair, for tissue support, for all the tissues of the body, but specifically for the gut lining. Um, Glutamine is the most used amino acid by the GI. So getting glutamine in through ways such as collagen and bone broth is a great way of doing it. And again, it's a food. You're just eating food. And so making your bone broth so simple. It's one of the most simple things that you can do. The hard part, though, is glutamine can also be, it has the potential of being problematic for some people, right? There are certain SNPs where people, genetic SNPs where people don't push glutamine down the GABA pathway very well, and so it can be excitatory and it can be inflammatory and create a lot of cognitive junk, right? Anxiety and depression and sort of these mood swings that can happen because it's excitatory. You can't bring it down. So you've got to be really careful with glutamine. If you start to notice that, think about, are you getting glutamine or are you taking glutamine as a supplement and it's creating a problem? And so it also, it's one of those things that we want to be careful if we're going through cancer treatments and things like that. So just stuff to be aware of, not something that is a place for me to dig into right now. But for the most part, these are really important amino acids for supporting gut health. Okay, and I think, a really good point here. If we're struggling with whatever type of symptom, very often is going to come from the GI, and we push too hard, and our symptoms can get worse. That's not always a bad thing, but it can be hard and it can be scary. So we want to manage how much of these things we bring in at one time, right? So if you've heard of low FODMAP, the low FODMAP diet, it has a place. It has a place in supporting symptoms. It has a place in getting somebody through mitigating symptoms as we're doing the other work of actually addressing the root cause. But doing a low FODMAP diet, which is they're types of starches and fibers, right? The FODMAP is an acronym. And when there are microbes in the wrong place, they feed on these FODMAPs, and they can cause gas and pain and crazy bloating and all of these things. And so the low FODMAP diet can help mitigate symptoms, but it's not going to help to mitigate the root cause. And so there are people who've been on a low FODMAP diet for years and years and years, and people who are told, just go get on a low FODMAP diet and you'll be fine. That's fine, but you're eliminating really important foods that support our microbiome. So it's not about just diet in a situation like this. There are many other things that need to be done as well, supporting the gallbladder, understanding the pH of the GI. Why are these bugs in the wrong place in the first place? What was the antibiotic history, right? What's the mental and emotional place for a patient or a client. So there's so many things that go into this that we have to take into consideration to make sure that when we are just decreasing symptoms, that we're looking at the whole picture. So we've got to be really careful bringing slowly. So I actually was talking, I was at a microbiome, just a dinner the other night. And the girl sitting next to me is a chiropractor she's a functional medicine chiropractor, and she was talking about how whatever happened with her, she had some massive GI disruption, right? So she's a healthy person. Something came in, maybe it was COVID, came in and totally wiped out her GI. And so some of these prebiotics that I was talking about in here that I can take a huge scoop of and it doesn't impact me at all, she could do just a few grains of it. And so knowing that when you start, if you're just going at this on your own, which I don't think is a good idea, but knowing when you start that when you push more symptoms, you're likely doing some good things, but you still got to be able to live life and manage your symptoms. So, taking things way back and just doing teeny tiny bits at a time for those who are super sensitive can be really important in just helping to manage as you're working through getting better. And so she worked through over months getting to a point now where she can actually do a full scoop of this one particular prebiotic. So super sensitive people are tough, but it's just, it's slow and low, right? Okay, so we were talking about rhythms earlier, and rhythms are important to our health and our GI, and then of course habits are as well. Can't see out of my glasses. So things that can be important is we talked about this already a little bit, but disruptive sleep, it disrupts gut signals, and then so that creates poor repair and altered glucose metabolism. And so I'll have people regularly who are like, my blood glucose levels are out of line, I'm eating really well, I don't know what's going on. My first question is, are you stressed? Because stress is going to push blood glucose, it's going to make it elevate. And so going back to it, it's not always about the food. A lot of times it is. But if we're really stressed, it's going to push inflammation and it's going to push blood glucose. That's going to interfere with stress. So then you have this sort of cycle that gets out of control where you've got inflammation and elevated glucose, and then you can't sleep, and then you have more inflammation and elevated glucose, and it just kind of gets really nasty. And you can watch, when I'm working with patients and clients, I can often just over their years and their timeline, I can see them spinning out of control, and you got to work fast to get it back into control. So stress modulation. So going back to it, prayer, breath work, nature, stillness, worship. All of these things go back to the vagus nerve, and so the vagus nerve is what connects our brain and our GI, but it also innervates our heart, it innervates our lungs, and it plays a big role in our GI and motility. And so if you're not going to the bathroom every day, we got to look, is there something going on with your vagus nerve? Are you constantly in a sympathetic tone, which means you're always in fight or flight? Sympathetic nervous system is always in fight or flight, which is going to shut down the vagus nerve, right? You shut down the vagus nerve, then you start to impact heart function, you impact GI function, and all of these things, right? So if we move into the parasympathetic, then it builds our vagal tone, right? And so then we're in a rest and digest. Everything's calm, everything's easy. So that's why prayer and yoga and meditation and sitting still while you eat and talking with friends and humming and all of these things bring you into this really walking, getting out in the sun, walking in the grass, bring you into a parasympathetic rest and digest calm place, and the vagus nerve functions optimally in this place. So this is a rhythm, right? It's normal to have stressors. So you go into a stressor, you shut down vagal tone, you shut down the core. That's okay for a very short period of time. But then you've got to get back into that parasympathetic. And then movement. Gosh, man, talking about movement, we got to move. I don't know that I always want to do 400 meters of lunges, but we've got to move, whether it's going out and walking the dog. You've got to find whatever it is that works for you. I do love CrossFit, but I don't do it every day. This is a thing too to understand that too much movement is problematic. And we got to look at the person. So if I'm going to put myself out there, right? I'm perimenopausal. I am 53. I'm a woman. I have hormones that are still kind of going wonky. And so stressors for women physiologically are just different. It's just the way that it is. And so all of these different things that are going on for me then to do CrossFit every day is probably going to be inflammatory, right? So it doesn't make sense for me to continue to push inflammation and push stress just because I want to go to the gym. So what do I do instead? I have a client who owns a HotWorks. So HotWorks, I go and I'll do yoga or bar or something in an infrared sauna. So it's that double whammy where you're, or kind of a triple whammy really, you're getting a calm, nice workout, you're in an infrared sauna, and you've got good heat, so you're sweating and detoxifying. So this is going to help with keeping the stressors low, but there's still muscle stressors, right? So I'm still building muscle and staying strong. So then other times I'll go for a walk. We're going to the mountains this weekend. We're going to be in the mountains walking all day, every day for days and days on end. It's going to be amazing. So you have to bear in mind where you are in life, how you're feeling, what you're doing, because if you're constantly stressed and you're going to the gym and working out really hard and it's building inflammation and glucose and you don't rest, then it's going to be hard to get the weight off if that's your goal, right? So we got to keep that in mind. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, circadian eating. I love this. So this goes back to then managing where we are in life and how we're eating. So usually I think ideally we're eating with the sun. We've got kind of an 8-ish hour time where the sun is up. So we have breakfast when the sun comes up, and then we have dinner as the sun's going down. Not always the way that we can do it. And some of us do better with some intermittent fasting. I think it works really well for men, less well for women. Men can do really well with a good solid 16, 18-hour fast, depending on their situation. Women, I think, maybe if you're younger and you're not trying to go through trying to get pregnant and things like that, maybe it's a little easier on the body, but we still have to keep our hormones in mind. But I think as we age, fasting for women can have an impact on the thyroid and throw the thyroid off. So I think that we want to, if we're going to do some intermittent fasting, we change it up a little bit, and maybe we do a day or two of a full day fast and then go back to normal eating. Or you do a couple of days of intermittent fasting with a shorter, maybe 14 or 16-hour cycle, and then you go back to regular eating. I'm not saying everybody has to eat breakfast. I'm not a breakfast eater. But we can do things like the Lumen. So Lumen is a device that measures your CO2 levels. I should have put this up on didn't even think about it, but it measures your CO2 levels and can help you understand if you're in carb burn, if you're in fat burn, also when to start eating again, when to break your fast in the morning. That has been a game changer for me, just understanding how and when to break my fast in the morning. So I can breathe into it, and I might need to break my fast at 8 o'clock. I might not need to break my fast until 10 or 11 or 12 o'clock. And so knowing that can help me understand my stress levels, because if I start burning carbs while I'm fasting, I know that my stressors are going up and I need to eat food. I mean, it's so simple, it's ridiculous, but it's such a big deal in learning your body. This is something that I'm working on. I'm learning my own body, but I'm working on a program that builds out adding in all of this stuff so you know how to understand your body to the deepest level possible. We're bringing in genetics, we're bringing in the continuous glucose monitors, we're bringing in the Lumen, we're bringing in body typing. So all of these things are going to be brought in and helping people to understand their body. I'm so excited about it. I'm not there yet, but I thought I would throw that in there since we're talking about it. Let's see. So I like this too. I put in my notes, there is intentionally a weekly Sabbath. So God kind of is a smart dude, right? He knew what he was doing. He knows that we need rest. And to not take advantage of rest, I think, is a bad idea. And I think it disrupts our rhythms. So, whatever you believe, that's your call. I have full faith that the world, the earth, the globe, the cosmos, everything has a rhythm, down to the little bugs in our GI. Everything has a rhythm, and everything has an intention, and everything has an ebb and a flow. And doing our best to go along with that and appreciating it and supporting it is only going to benefit us. So taking that time for rest and for enjoyment, whatever that looks like for you, on a regular basis is really important. I had somebody tell me, it was a client of mine, just told me yesterday he hadn't been on a vacation in 2 years. I was like, time to go on a vacation. This is not a healthy place to be, is to not go on vacation. So go on vacations. Let's see. We're kind of at our end, but I think that, one of the things that I want to make sure that we hit on here is, just being careful with, everybody comes to me and says, I just want to be on a probiotic. What probiotic should I be on? I don't know. I have no idea. Some probiotics may be helpful, some may be harmful, some may just be too much. So without really GI testing, I'm not going to know. Now, I can go back and I can look at, some of these keystone probiotics and say, yeah, these probably are some of the ones that you should be on. But doing a GI panel, not everybody has to do one, but they give us a ton of information. They help us understand your pancreatic, how your pancreas is functioning, your gallbladder, inflammatory markers. It can help us see if there's some mold, some microbes. It literally looks at all of your microbes and can tell us about your commensals, your opportunistic, and your pathogenic. And so these are the things that help us tune into you, right? So going back to the program that I'm developing, I'm also inputting labs. Whatever labs that people want to run and are willing to run, we're going to put those in. The more information we have, the better. We can take a probiotic that for some people is healthy, but for another person, it's boosting too much of one specific strain and creates problems, dysfunction or, bloating, kind of discomfort, that kind of thing. It happens regularly. So, so much of this too goes back to just spending money wisely. We don't want to just go throw money away just because we hear probiotics are good. A lot of times you go to Amazon, which please don't go to Amazon for your supplements. It's such a scary place. Go to them for your, whatever else, just not your essential oils and your and your supplements. But we don't know if the bugs are actually at therapeutic doses, if they're dead or alive. There are some who'll say that even the dead bugs have some benefit, but I think the goal really is to have good, healthy bugs that play a role in our GI. Most of them don't stick around. Most of them are going to go right through. So we have spore-based probiotics that are intended to stick around and colonize, but a lot of them, they do their job and then they move out of the body, and that's intentional and that's okay. But we still want to know that what we're taking, what we're spending our money on, is healthy and wise, right? Antimicrobials. I love antimicrobials. The right ones work really well. The best antimicrobials, man, just makes me think. I keep forgetting to talk about my stuff that I've got going on back here. So I'll do that in just a second. But some of the best antimicrobials. There's one called Biocidin that I love. It's part of this protocol. If you can see behind me, the oral terrain protocol. I'll use this as I'm oil pulling, but it will build good, healthy microbes, and it will not destroy them, but it will destroy the ones that shouldn't be there, the ones that are problematic. And so it'll do that in your GI, it'll do that in your mouth. And so that's kind of why I continue to put this up here, because we don't think as much about our oral microbiome, and it's kind of where it all starts, right? At least from the top. And so building a good oral microbiome with um, the right antimicrobials if necessary, but then bringing in the good commensal bugs also, so you're not getting cavities, right? You're not getting bad breath. We have the ability to rebuild our teeth. We don't have to get them filled with toxic crap. And this is one that's a hard one to get people to understand, right? If we can rebuild bone, we can rebuild cavities, but we've got to do it properly, and it takes some work, right? And so getting rid of the bugs that aren't supposed to be there is going to be a key way of doing that. So your oral terrain, this is just, I built this out, back, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and it really is just a self-assessment, what's your oral terrain look like, and then a little simple protocol guide. So I don't know if you can see it. Some of you can, some of you can't, but you can, there's a QR code, but you can go, go online to anywhere the show is, and you'll be able to see the QR code. Then, though, we've got Susan Drake. So I'm still getting in the habit of remembering that we have a sponsor, and I need to get better about this. But Susan is with Mountain Medical Concepts. Great company with some really amazing practitioner products. They are specifically for practitioners, but just because you're not a practitioner doesn't mean you can't go ask for New BioAge. So New BioAge is a company, they do peptides. Specifically for this show, though, they've got what are called gutides. Gutides are a combination of specific peptides that are specific to the gut. So we've got KPV, we've got BPC 157. BPC 157, though, is not specific to the gut, although it works really well in the gut. It's called body protective compound. Super cool stuff. It does all kinds of amazing things. In my mind, I kind of see it as sort of an adaptogen, but it can help with pain and inflammation and mitochondrial support and gut health and just the list goes on. So it is considered a gutide, although you can take the BPC 157 by itself and it does all kinds of other stuff. So the peptide world that we're living in now, I'm super excited to just start to see it explode even more because it's already exploding. But this is a really cool place to be because peptides are normal and natural to the body, and we can bring them in and support the body normally and naturally. This is a great thing. Now, that being said, some of the peptides are made synthetically, but what I believe to be the case is they're bioidentical, right? They're kind of amino acid chains. Amino acid chains are, that's how we're built, is through amino acid chains. So lorazepatide, though, is one I forgot. Lorazepatide, also a gutide that is specific to the gut and has some really great data on it for supporting, whether it's just GI dysfunction or if it's Crohn's, colitis, things like this that can be super helpful. So if you are a practitioner, reach out to Susan. There is a QR code that you can't see. I think some of you can see it, but if you're on my stream, it's kind of difficult. But you can just go to where the show is and you'll see the QR codes there, and she's linked and that kind of thing. But she's got some great stuff, really cool stuff. So check her out, call or reach out to her. She'll answer any questions that you have. And if you're not a practitioner, then just ask your practitioner, right? Just ask for the gutides, ask for New BioAge. Great company. Appreciate them and all that they're doing for sure. So let's see. I think I want to hit real quick again, just to sort of bring it home on the antimicrobials. We always hear a lot about things like oregano oil, which is a great antimicrobial, but has the potential of killing off some of the good bugs. So we want to find somebody who knows what they're doing, who can help you through these protocols if this is something that you need to do. Okay, so and a note here, this is a great note, that protocols are tools, they're not lifestyles, right? We don't want to have to constantly, and this is what we see, we're seeing people who are struggling with things like candida and SIBO, and it's this you're fighting it and it goes away, and then there's a recurrence, and then you do more antibiotics or antifungals and it goes away, and then there's a recurrence because we're not addressing the root cause. When we address the root cause, the likelihood of recurrence is much less. So going after the constant antifungals, which can play a huge role in disrupting the microbiome. And then, of course, antibiotics, we already know, everybody knows, plays a role in disrupting the microbiome. These are things we want to really keep in mind and keep it, find balance, bring balance, not about constantly fighting, right? And just fighting symptoms is not helpful for us. I think that's it. I'm over time, but we started late. So I hope that this was helpful. I have so many more things that I want to talk about. So we're going to talk. I'm not in next week. We're in the mountains all next week. Thank goodness. We've got our family fly fishing trip in the mountains. So we're going to meet about 45 of us out there going in to hang out. So super looking forward to that. It's always a great trip everywhere. I missed it last year, but we'll certainly go this year, and excited to get out and get in the mountains and watch the dogs run and play and that kind of thing. So won't be here, but we'll be back the following week, the first week of August. Can you believe it? Man, just time flies. It's insane. But we'll be back. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. Let me know. You can find me at Taste Life Nutrition in all of the places. You can fill out a free assessment. We'll get you on there and chat a little bit and see what we can do to help. Or if I know someone who can help you, you can always find us here on KUHSdenver.com, streaming live 10 a.m. Mountain Time almost every Thursday. But there's always going to be something on, like next week there will be a replay of another show on Thursday, 10 a.m. So let us know if there's anything that I can do. I am here to be of service in any way that I can. I hope you all have a wonderful week, a wonderful weekend. Steve, I'll call you later. Happy birthday. I hope you had a great day. And we'll see y'all later on. Bye.